We're pleased to welcome Nathaniel Hurst back to Mass Bay RE with his program to see what's going on in the railroad industry. Get out of New England. Nathaniel Hurst was raised in Westford, Mass, growing up about a mile from the Guilford Pan Am Freight main line in a railroad family. His mother, Carol, worked 20 years in the industry, spending time at the Boston and Maine and Toledo, Peoria, and Western. His father, Rick Hurst, worked over 40 years on the railroad at Boston Terminal, Conrail, Boston and Maine, Amtrak, and Mass Bay Commuter Rail. Nathaniel hired out on the Springfield Terminal / Pan Am Railways. In November of 2011 as a train dispatcher. He was promoted to Director of Train Operations in December of 2014. He left Pan Am in 2016 to join Keola's commuter service, where he currently owns the first Trek Valley dispatcher job at the Iron Horse Park Operations Control Center in North Billerica. Railroading brings together Nathaniel's many interests that include geography, travel, business, and economics. Growing with and ultimately working in the industry, Nathaniel has learned firsthand how vital railroads are in our everyday lives, even though we might not realize it. For all that goes on here with railroading here in New England, Nathaniel understands that there is much more to the railroad industry in the American economy than just the 6 New England states. His program will take us on a journey to see and hear about what's happening in the railroad industry outside of New England. We'll visit the Canadian Pacific, Kansas City, CPKC, Canadian National, Union Pacific, the Meridian Speedway, and other locations in Iowa, Nebraska, Illinois, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, Mississippi, and Alabama. And I'll just add one note. Nathaniel does have to get up and be at work at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we need to keep that into consideration. So in any event, Nathaniel, welcome back to Mass Bay RE.
Always good to be back with you, Dave. All right. Well, just a brief overview for tonight here. There's 70 total images, about 58 pictures of mine that I've taken over the last couple of years. And I don't know how great people are with their geography of the U.S. and railroads, but I have gone to a Canadian National has a great interactive map on their website, as well as a CPKC's map on their website, and I've taken some screen images of them to post here just so people can follow along the proverbial bouncing ball, just to keep up to date on where we are. When I think about what's going on here in New England, there's really not. I'm not going to say it's not exciting, but to really get out into the meat and to really see what's going on, you got to get west of here. And the last couple of years, I've been fortunate enough to take some vacation time and go west and see some of these spots. And obviously it's not just the trains, but I do enjoy seeing what's happening, and for my own posterity of for the industry I've worked in all my in my adult life, to see what's going on. The first map here, again, this is from CN's website. The red is the Canadian National. Chicago, obviously, in the upper right. We'll be in Chicago at some point. You follow the red line south down into Memphis and Jackson. You can see Jackson at the bottom. We'll start with the Meridian Speedway, which is that blue line, Shreveport right through Jackson. It doesn't show it, but into Meridian, Mississippi. Why is it not moving? There we go. The Meridian Speedway, it's a former Illinois Central line. It was, the Illinois Central mostly being north-south, and a east-west line, Illinois into Iowa. A lot of people might forget about Shreveport into Meridian, but it was Illinois Central. Had spun off into the Mid-South when the IC didn't want it. And the KCS gobbled up the Mid-South in the early 90s. And in 2006, they cut a deal with NS for a joint venture called the Meridian Speedway, where KCS had 70%, Norfolk Southern has 30%. And they've put quite a bit of money in this. I actually, this morning before work, went through KCS annual reports from 2006 up until the first quarter of this year of a CPKC Q1 filing. They have spent a total of $647.4 million in capital expenditures on this piece of railroad. And it really is the premier southwest to southeast rail line. A lot of intermodal, a lot of manifest traffic. So the first image here, this was from last, actually 2 months now. No, excuse me, last month. This is May 1st. We got CPKC's eastbound intermodal train from Los Angeles to Atlanta, where UP brings it from LA to Shreveport, jumps on the Speedway from Shreveport to Meridian, and then Norfolk Southern brings it up to Atlanta. And here they are crossing the Mississippi River, coming into Vicksburg. The bottom, you guys can see the cannons. I mean, Vicksburg was a big part of the Civil War. Abe Lincoln had called it, he referred to Vicksburg as the key, and that the Union could not win the Civil War until that key was in our pocket, I think was the quote from him. So it's nice to see that the railroad is alive and well in Vicksburg, and how the history is still there. This is from CPKC's 2025 map of the Speedway, Shreveport to the left, go right through northern Louisiana, cross the Mississippi into Vicksburg, and go due east, Jackson, across the CN, and over to Meridian, Mississippi. So we had the Los Angeles to Atlanta eastbound pig. Now we have the Atlanta to Dallas westbound pig. This is just west of the Mississippi River in Delta, Louisiana. And KCS unit coming, bringing the train through the interlock and at West Beauvais. This train, so the bridge that we saw, the Mississippi River Bridge, it's 10, timetable 10. He was crawling across it, and they started to pick up speed here. And I thought, nice summer sun, early summer sun, chase it west. Well, by the time I got on the highway, I was barely making a dent, doing 70 on the highway. This guy was, he got right up to track speed. 59, I believe, is track speed up here. And from CN's website, their interactive map, the blue you can see is the Meridian Speedway, Delta over the Mississippi into Vicksburg. The black, we'll get into the black line here in a second. That's the Vicksburg Southern, former Yazoo and Mississippi River Railroad. Just north of Vicksburg, you got the Port of Vicksburg, right on the Yazoo River. There's a number of customers in there. And then at the very top, you see Redwood, Mississippi. There's an international paper plant up there. Speaking of the Vicksburg Southern, it's a Watco outfit. And here's their northbound from downtown Vicksburg up to Redwood. They got a 39-car train for the IP paper plant. 5 loads of pulp wood on the head pin, followed up by a couple of loads of sodium hydroxide solution, and then a slug of empty boxcars. I'm about to cross King's Crossing here in Vicksburg. And this is a shot paralleling Route 61 as you go from Vicksburg north into Redwood of the head end. A couple of GP 39-Es, and that's the Yazoo River in the background. We talked a little bit about the port of Vicksburg, and here's the Vicksburg Southern switching out ergon refining in the port. There's a national cemetery in Vicksburg, Vicksburg National Cemetery, grave sites of soldiers, some from the Civil War, some from the Spanish-American War, up until and through World War II. Folks are buried here, and I had spent all day with the local in the port, and decided to take a walk through the cemetery, and just to get out and enjoy the weather, and was lucky enough to that the local was headed back to downtown at the same time. Another Los Angeles to Atlanta pig over the Mississippi River, crossing from Delta into Vicksburg. And this is the Meridian Speedway's got two subdivisions between Vicksburg and Shreveport. That's the Vicksburg sub. And then around here is where the division point changes from Vicksburg to Meridian, is the Meridian subdivision. We're in the town of Pearl, Mississippi. Pearl is about southeast of Jackson. And even though the CN, the IC, has a huge presence in the Jackson area, the KCS by the Mid-South and now the CPKC, they certainly have a presence. And this is their yard, the east end of their yard in Jackson. Well, in Pearl, but Jackson yard. A couple KCS units and their switcher. And on the left, some power being looked at by a maintainer. Of course, as the clouds started to come in and the storms, you get the eastbound Dallas to Atlanta intermodal. 2 units. This train was massive, 315 containers between Dallas and Atlanta. I say Dallas, it's actually just outside of Dallas. The yard is in Wiley. It's probably about 20 miles, 30 miles northeast of Dallas. When most people think of intermodal, especially up here in New England, you just think of the containers and the trailers. Well, you have these, you're starting to get more gas and liquids, whether they be hazardous or non-hazardous. And a cylinder of something, whether it was loaded or residue, I don't know, but I know it's not hazardous. We can, well, I don't know if you can, yeah, we can zoom in here. You can see where the placard would be on the cylinder. No placard there, which tells me it's not a hazardous load or empty. And a brief overview of Jackson from the Canadian Nationals interactive map. The red obviously is the CN. The red that goes up off to the left is the Yazoo subdivision that brings you up to Memphis and ultimately Chicago. The red that goes off up to the right is the Canton subdivision that goes up to Canton, Mississippi, and the Grenada Railroad. The blue obviously is the CPKC, the Meridian Speedway. You can see their yard down in Pearl. And the red to the lower left is the Macomb sub that brings it down to New Orleans. And the red line that goes down to the right is the Beaumont sub that goes down to Mobile, Alabama. And we will see later, but there's just north of Pearl and east of Jackson, due east, is a town called Flowood. There is a huge industrialized area there. We'll see the CN here in a second, switching that out. But speaking of CN in Jackson, here we're at the CN yard in Jackson. A brief overview from the main road that goes across. The main line is off to the left here, and that's the division point between the Yazoo sub, which would be behind us, and the Macomb sub, which we're looking to do south here. It's always good to see a variety of power. A couple of Illinois Central Death Star SD70s. Something different, something you would never see up here. Back to the CPKC yard in Jackson, and Pearl, Jackson yard in Pearl, an eastbound local doing some switching. A couple of KCS units. You can see the westbound train that is tied down off to the right. You can see the Schneider containers. Schneider historically has been aligned with CSX on the East Coast. And before the new CPKC CSX deal with the Meridian and Bigby, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but they did not have access to the Meridian Speedway. And now CSX has access to the Meridian Speedway, and so does Schneider. So a CN local out of Jackson here in Flowood, Mississippi. Never heard of Flowood until I was physically there. Going up to switch that industrial area. They call it the Avery Industrial Lead. And looking after switching the Avery Industrial Lead, they ran back light back to Jackson. To get from the Avery Industrial Lead to the CN, they have to go over CPKC's main line. And here they are running light. You can see the Mississippi State Capitol in the background. I'm about to cross over the Pearl River. From Jackson, we'll go due east to Meridian. And again, from the interactive CN map, the blue is the CPKC. The pink is the Norfolk Southern. So the blue goes due west to Jackson, right along the Meridian Regional Airport. That would be the NS down in New Orleans. The black off to the right would be the Meridian and Bigby going to Pennington, Alabama, and Myrtlewood, Alabama to CSX. That's now actually part of CPKC. And the blue going up is the CP's Artesia sub going up into Mississippi, and the pink going up is NS's line to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and Atlanta. And first day in Meridian, we have this is a loaded oil train coming off the Meridian Speedway and onto CP's Artesia sub, as it would ultimately make its way to the Hunt refinery in Tuscaloosa. Got downtown Meridian in the background. Now, folks that obviously know railroad operations might be looking at this picture and saying, well, Nate, how can it be a loaded oil train and there's no spacer between the locomotive and the loaded oil cars. And I did check when the train was going by. It was definitely the correct UN number to be crude oil. And the only answer I have for that is there's been a couple of oil companies that have produced a type of crude oil that is considered, even though it's still a hazardous material, it's not conventional crude. Where you think of conventional crude, God forbid there's a derailment of the conventional crude, it could ignite and combust and cause some devastation. This particular crude, they call it DRU bit, which removes the chemical that would cause crude oil to ignite. And you get a crude oil that is a molasses-like consistency. And if this train derailed and the oil spilled out, it would not ignite. My understanding of it. The other thing, most oil trains, when you see across the country, general crude oil, in a 100-car train, you probably have 70% of that would be oil that the refinery can use. 30% give or take of that would be what's called diluent, that it's combined with the oil. It's a lighter hydrocarbon. That's what makes it flow. I'm sure there's more information online of it for folks that might be interested, but I certainly find it fascinating to see that this kind of stuff is being shipped today. Some more of that CPKC map here. Obviously the Speedway, but when you get to Meridian, you can see the red line, Meridian, that goes due east to Myrtlewood. So that was the Meridian and Bigby, and there was a G&W line. And the CSX had wanted access to the Meridian Speedway for years. And they finally, CSX, CP, and the G&W came up with this arrangement where CP bought the Meridian and Bigby from Meridian to Myrtlewood, where they now have a direct interchange with CSX. The line from Myrtlewood goes east to Montgomery. And when we think about railroads that interchange traffic, if you were the KCS and you were interchanging traffic with with CSX, you generally, it was New Orleans, East St. Louis, and a town just east of Tuscaloosa that were all a couple of hundred of miles more transit time than the Meridian Speedway and the Meridian and Bigby. As an example, if a CSX traffic from the KCS to CSX via Myrtlewood is 158 miles shorter than the same traffic from the KCS to CSX in New Orleans. 255 miles shorter from the East St. Louis interchange. So they're putting in quite a bit of money into this piece of railroad that was 10 miles an hour, give or take, maybe a couple of spots at 25, but nothing much. So here we are on the Meridian Bigby. We're in Pennington, Alabama, and one of the more significant bridges on this railroad is a drawbridge that goes over the Tom Bigby River. The drawbridge used to be joint railroad and car traffic. That was until 2004 when the state of Alabama built this the bridge you see off to the right here. And now the Tom Bigby River Bridge is strictly railroad. but it's got a permanent speed restriction of 5, which I know certainly wreaks havoc on run times and interchange times. Last year, the CPKC spent $46 million in upgrading parts of the line, and the Tom Bigby River Bridge is one of 24 bridges that are in the range of 85 to 100 years old. And I know there are plans at some point to upgrade this bridge to get a speed far greater than 5.
Nathaniel, if I could just interject for a second.
Sure.
Just thinking back to the slide you showed a little bit, maybe 4 or 5 slides back. You don't have to go back there. The Meridian Yard, I was curious as to what the, obviously it was this train station, but the red roof building there, and that is the Meridian Union Station, and it's served by the Crescent in both directions.
Right on the NS main line, and we will see that again here later. But served by the Crescent daily, and I didn't go actively on this trip here last month. I did not go actively looking for any. I was more interested in the freight stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But not the greatest picture here, but well, when in Rome, you do as the Romans do. So when you get the eastbound Jackson, Mississippi to Myrtlewood, Alabama train, CPKC to CSX interchange, you do what you can. Telephoto zoomed it right in to the eastbound crossing the Tom Bigby River. A few miles away, you get to the town of Myrtlewood, Alabama, which I've been to many places that feel like the middle of no place. This was definitely the middle of no place. And you can see this was the CSX crew that had just gotten on the train. They're now moving east towards Montgomery. And you can see the CPKC crew getting into their taxi to cab back to wherever they came from. Prior operations here, interchange between CSX and the Meridian and Bigby. There's another G&W outfit that just east of here that has access down to here as well. Run times and car cycle times. I mean, their cars are left here and interchanged here, the whole 9 yards. This is a much better interchange with CSX now and CPKC, where you just, the train shows up, the old crew gets off, new crew gets on, and you go. So definitely doing more positive things than what had happened. Of course, I had to go back the following day to see, so even though the CPKC now owns the Meridian and Bigby between Meridian, Mississippi and Myrtlewood, Alabama, they call that the Haverty subdivision. The Meridian and Bigby, the G&W Railroad, still has access to switch the local customers, and probably the largest local customer on that piece of railroad is a Georgia Pacific mill just outside of Pennington, Alabama, and they're starting their Monday morning here, switching. Up in Meridian here, you have the Meridian and Bigby local job after doing some interchanging with the CPKC and the NS in Meridian, headed back to their yard. The yard is in the foreground here, a couple of tracks, but the main line, what they're coming off of, that was all rebuilt by CPKC. Pretty good and very impressive piece of railroad. On the following day, the Meridian and Bigby, the Meridian local, doing some more interchange with the CPKC. The bridge that we shot from that CN unit in the crude oil train. You can see that in the background. So now I'm on the west bridge. Meridian Union Station in the background. And of course, at a double stack intermodal train, that was the Atlanta to Los Angeles. That was the westbound pig that would be headed for the Speedway. One of the Western Pacific, Union Pacific's Western Pacific Heritage Unit had made a trip east from Los Angeles over the Speedway up to Atlanta. I had seen it. It came through Meridian at night, and when I continued due east, spent some time in Tuscaloosa on the trip, and I figured there was definitely a chance of seeing it. I didn't actively go out for it, but here's the Atlanta to Los Angeles pig with the Western Pacific Heritage Unit. They're taking the hole here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to wait for a eastbound manifest. And these trains, Atlanta to Los Angeles, they are massive. 250 containers, all double stacked. It's really impressive what NS, CPKC, and UP have done for the traffic. So we'll go from May of 2025's trip. We'll go up to Illinois. This is October of 2024, and one of the we're here in Bensonville, Illinois, on the CPKC's Elgin subdivision. And one of the big things of the CPKC when they merged is they started trains 180 and 181, San Luis Potosí in Mexico to Chicago and vice versa. And here we have 180, the northbound, eastbound, coming into Bensonville. Relatively large train. They're like 115 intermodal, all but one were double stacked. And there are some auto racks on the tail end, loaded auto racks. These trains have done very well for the CPKC. Started May of 2023 from a conference call Keith Creel gave a couple of weeks ago. He said at the start, these trains are running at 3,000 feet in train length. And today, this was, again, just a couple of weeks ago, now it's up to about 7,000 to 8,000 feet in train length. So they're definitely taking on some traffic. And customers it's a 4-day transit time from 98 hours from Mexico, the middle of Mexico, to Chicago and vice versa. And it's something that truck cannot beat. You think about, obviously not to get political, and I'm not going to get political, but just from an operations standpoint on the US-Mexico border, if you're a truck, there's about a 16-hour window during the day that you have to go from one country to the next, and it shuts down the other 8 hours. The railroad crossing is open 24/7. So, you got some customers on this train. You got Schneider and Knight Swift, and we're hauling we're hauling automotive parts, plant shutdown parts that generally over the years had never been on the railroad because the railroad wasn't dependable enough. But the railroad, the CPKC, they're doing a good business. And just a brief overview. I'm sorry, so that was 181. That's the northbound. 180 is the southbound train. But this was a picture of the JPEG, the thing off of CPKC's website a talking about the Mexico Midwest Express service that they do. And starting next month, you see Kansas City on there. They're opening a special intermodal at CPKC's yard in Kansas City, Americold, which deals with refrigerated goods, vegetables, meats, proteins. They're going to be shipping U.S. protein. Going to be trucked from the general Kansas City area to the intermodal yard and take a train from Kansas City deep into Mexico. And from Mexico into the U.S., they're going to be shipping produce, stuff that on both sides that historically has been trucked. And I do know Loblaws, the Canadian grocer, they've been already using the Midwest Mexico Express to get Mexico produce from deep into Mexico up to Toronto via this service. So for those of you that don't see much of anything that you like or hear much of anything that you like on the railroad industry, I'll tell you, I don't know what people might be looking at, but anything I hear, nothing but positives. So here we are. This is Bensenville, Illinois, the east end of the yard, CP's yard. You see the containers piling up. And from the other side of the same bridge, the same KCS power that came up from Mexico, going back to the west end after yarding their train, looking east here towards downtown Chicago. You can see the interlocking, the control point in the distance. That's for interlocking. It's called Tower B12. And B12, you cross the Canadian National. It's the, where are we here? It's the Waukesha sub. And then you also you also have a junction at Tower B12 with the Indiana Harbor Belt, nonstop. And this was just that brief overview of Bensenville, Franklin Park, Schiller Park from CN's map. The brown is the CPKC Bensenville yard. The red is the Canadian National. Schiller Park, CP also had access up to Schiller Park. They had their own yard up there that they're actually looking to sell it now. They've consolidated all the operations down into Bensenville. And as part of Bensenville, they've not just with the auto stuff, but everything else. CP from 2023, mid 2023 until mid next year, 2026. They're looking at spending $300 million, that's US dollars, and upgrading and adding on to their Bensenville yard. And one of the things that they've put into Bensenville is an auto yard. And I don't have a drone, so I couldn't get an overview of it, but a picture of the new sign for the yard, well, that would do. From Bensenville, we go due west. We find ourselves. You can see Bartlett. That's on the CPKC, and just west of Bartlett. I don't know if you guys can see where my cursor is, but the two red lines. The top to bottom, that's the CN's Layton sub. That's the former EJ&E, the Elgin Joliet and Eastern. And the left to right is their Fremont sub that goes Chicago out to the state of Iowa. And part of this, where CN crosses the CP CN cross. There's a town called Spalding, Illinois. And here we are at Spalding, a northbound CN manifest counting the diamonds with the CPKC. And just north of Spalding, I mean, this is all public information. This comes from CN's website. They just put in earlier this year, the very beginning of this year, new double track between what they call Ivory, which is literally just north of this interlocking at Spalding, and it goes up to South Sutton. So CN's been putting money into the EJ&E. CN has a huge advantage over the other railroads going into Chicago, where Chicago is just it is absolutely congested, and CN has a huge advantage where it doesn't have to get caught up in all of that congestion. So they're definitely spending some money to maintain that piece of railroad. From Spalding, Illinois, we'll go west. A CN map here that shows the CPKC in Union Pacific in Clinton, Iowa. The yellow is the UP. The brown is the CP, the Canadian Pacific. And Clinton is a junction between the two railroads. Huge amount of traffic here. There's a massive Archer Daniels Midland plant, number of other customers that we'll see. So here we are in Clinton, and we got this is the tail end of the train, but this is the Twin Cities to Kansas City manifest, CPKC manifest after crossing over the UP at 5th Street. And the BNSF power, well, that's their local. Even though BNSF doesn't own any track in Clinton, they have trackage rights on the CPKC up from Davenport, Iowa, up to Clinton to be able to service the Archer Daniels Midland plant here. And some of the power that the Archer Daniels Midland crew using to switch out the plant. They do corn processing here, so ethanol, corn starch, I'm sure. This is from the west side. We're at the UP yard. Just west of Clinton, we get to still in the same general area, but Kamashi, Iowa, which is a junction point here on the west, for the west end of Clinton, if you will, between the CP and UP. And there's some industries around here as well, but we got a light, the Canadian Pacific's Clinton local coming back through Kamashi. And this is a brand new interlocking, probably mid last year, that they put in, called Kamashi North. Which is part of their, this is part of their north-south corridor between the Twin Cities and the Gulf. And you can see that bridge they're about to cross over, Mill Creek. We'll do a quick trip back here, May of 2023. That's that same bridge. One thing we all need to remember about the railroad, it's an outdoor sport. This, when you follow along the Mississippi River, which is probably 100 yards from where this picture is taken, in the spring, you have all that snow melting from up north, and it makes its way down the Mississippi, and well, it has to go somewhere. We'll go just north of Clinton here. We get a brief overview here of the, this is again from CN's map, but Sabula, Iowa, on the left, and going over the Mississippi River, you got Savannah, Illinois on the right, center and into the right, and CP, the Chicago sub crosses BNSF and Savannah, and then they cross the Mississippi River. And when you go up when you go north of Sabula, that's CP's Marquette sub, and then you go south of Sabula, and that's their Davenport sub. And we got their Savannah, Illinois local, bringing a train west over the Mississippi River Bridge. Sabula, for those that do not know, we all like vacations and island getaways. It's actually a lot cheaper to come to Sabula, which is Iowa's island getaway. It's a lot cheaper than going to Hawaii or Bermuda in the Bahamas, and for me, a lot more interesting. Of course, you can't forget that along the Mississippi River, railroads compete head-to-head for barge traffic. And as soon as the westbound local cleared, they swung open the bridge to let a barge come south. Again, going just north of Sabula, we're in a town called Bellevue, Iowa, halfway between Sabula and Dubuque. And you got a southbound Twin Cities to the Kansas City freight. Now this is October of 2024. To take you back to this exactly same location in May of 2023, again, this is directly from the Mississippi River, and the flooding and just the amount of money that I know CP has to put in to maintain this north-south main line every year for this exact reasons. I don't have exact figures for what they spend for this stuff. For just this area, you could easily find out what they spend for CapEx every year for the entire railroad. But for this area, I'm sure a couple of $1 million at least. And that same southbound train coming up to Sabula, to go from the Marquette sub onto the Davenport sub. I don't know how many people here, I occasionally enjoy a bowl of oatmeal in the morning. But when you think of oatmeal, I certainly think of Quaker Oats. Quaker Oats, owned by PepsiCo, the same company that owns Frito-Lay and Pepsi. And this is the Quaker Oats factory in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And they get service from both the UP and the Canadian National. And a lot of the oats that Quaker gets come from out of Saskatchewan, come off the CN. They get direct service from CN. Some of them come off CN or CP and get interchanged with the UP, and the UP does the switching. So here's one of UP's Cedar Rapids based locals switching out Quaker. From the CP to the CN yard is right next door to the Quaker plant. The Quaker plant in this picture is the large building in the on the left, and the CN, they're switching out Cargill, which is on the right. course, operations down here have changed a little bit. CN just bought the Iowa Northern. Iowa Northern had a line that connected with the UP in Cedar Rapids, and I'm sure CN is using that to their advantage. So we go from eastern Iowa to central Iowa. We'll go to western Iowa. You can see Sioux City towards the bottom left. The red is the Canadian National, the yellow is the UP, and a brownish gray is the BNSF. And CN, it's their Cherokee sub that goes from Tara, Iowa to Sioux City. And there's a joint trackage with the UP between Sioux City and Lamars. The track is owned by CN, but it's dispatched and maintained by the UP. There's quite a bit of stuff going on in Sioux City. Another Cargill mill here in a Canadian National Sioux City local, doing some switching of it. After switching Cargill, there's a total of 5 diamonds right in the middle of Sioux City. And here they're crossing 3 of them, shoving some steel loads into a steel distributor here in Sioux City. And a UP northbound out of Sioux City up to, they got a recrew in Sioux City, and headed north for the Twin Cities on the joint UP CN trackage, Cherokee sub. Coming into Lamars, Iowa here, and in a few miles they take the CN would take a right turn to head to Chicago. This train would take a left turn and head up to the Twin Cities. Of course, you can't forget about BNSF in Sioux City as well. 5 units. I think this was about an 80 car southbound out of Sioux City, and they're crossing the Missouri River from Sioux City, Iowa, into South Sioux City, Nebraska. I was probably here 10 minutes and the train showed up. The railroad gods were definitely looking upon me this day. From Nebraska, we'll go back to eastern Iowa. This is May of 2023. A CN local coming into their yard in Dubuque. If you think about Dubuque, from CN's map, you can see Dubuque up in the upper left, and the red. Obviously, the CN is joint trackage. It's CN's Dubuque subdivision. CP uses it to get through Dubuque. And then CN goes due east right over the Mississippi River, where they cross a diamond with the BNSF. It's their Chicago division. And then they run over the Chicago division a few miles, Portage, Illinois to East Dubuque, where then they go back due east to Rockford, Illinois, and Chicago. And the CN yard here in Dubuque. Most people think of Iowa as very flat, at least when I talk to most people, cornfields and flatness. Eastern Iowa, especially northeastern Iowa, is quite hilly. I can tell you westbound trains that CN has that come out of Dubuque that continue west into Iowa. There's a hell of a grade for them to get out of the Mississippi River Valley. We'll go to the state capital of Iowa, Des Moines. Most people probably, when you think of Des Moines, you think of the UP. They got a north-south line that goes through Des Moines, and then the Iowa Interstate. You can see the UP in the yellow. There's a huge yard here, a short line yard in Des Moines, UP's yard. And you can see the black line, east-west, that's the Iowa Interstate. But there's one more railroad in Des Moines. It's Norfolk Southern. It's their only operation in Iowa. They get to it through haulage rights over the BNSF and the Iowa Interstate. Got a UP southbound intermodal crossing, one of two diamonds with the NS in Des Moines. Sign for NS's Glake Yard, Des Moines, Iowa. And their local, this was a Saturday. Their Des Moines local was working. They had to go switch out. A customer. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they're crossing over Control Point Maury Street over the UP. That's the second diamond. Get up to Illinois here on part of the old GM&O that KCS, CPKC have. We're in Jacksonville, Illinois, and Bartlett Grain built a brand new facility for grain hauling between the Midwest and Mexico. And this is exclusively served by the KCS. Straightforward operation here with a massive loop. They've done some excellent business here. And I know Bartlett was very supportive of the CPKC merger. CN at one point wanted the STB to, as a condition of the CPKC merger, they wanted the STB to force the KCS and the CP to give CN the railroad between Kansas City and Springfield and East St. Louis, which would include this line up to Jacksonville. And Bartlett said, you got to be kidding. And obviously that did not become a condition of the merger, thankfully. 181, the Mexico Midwest Express. This is Mena, Arkansas, on the old KCS. A couple of autos, and then you can see all the intermodal containers behind them. And we'll end here, Mena, Arkansas, again right on the old KCS main line, a southbound loaded coal train out of the Powder River Basin. This guy was cruising. He was definitely doing 40, might have been a little more. But just to recap here, I mean, there's a lot of investment going on in the railroad industry. Yeah, there's stuff here in New England, but there's much more exciting stuff going on outside of here. And I would certainly encourage people. I mean, all this information is generally public. STB filings, annual reports. You don't have to be an investor in the railroad to see the public copies. Hope you guys enjoyed the program. I've certainly enjoyed taking the trips. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Nathaniel, very much. Interesting program, a lot of different liveries there from prior to the merger. So